name's Jim Murchie. I run a firm called Energy Income Partners. We invest in energy infrastructure, as I tell my investors so they understand it, poles and wires, pipes and tanks. Can't make it too simple. I started my career at the old Standard Oil of Ohio. A guy named John Brown, who's now Lord Mattingly, stuck me in New York. That's how I got to Wall Street. I've had my own investment business for the last 25 plus years. Chad Zamarin is currently, as of last year, the president and CEO of Williams. Prior to that, he's had business development jobs and ventures and different things. And before that, he was in the midstream business at Cheniere and Columbia Gas. Derrick York runs the solar division at Caterpillar. It's just, as you folks know, the turbine business. He has other experiences as well at Caterpillar, and his career is sort of the reverse of mine. He actually started off in public accounting and investment banking, and then actually as an investor, and then decided to do something important with his life and have a real job making real things. So I was a history major at Rice, and so I love the secretary's historical version of energy. But what I also love about the secretary is he always brings data and numbers to his discussion. And as William Edwards Deming, the father of quality, famously said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And we are going to talk, with the chairman's permission, we are going to talk about electricity today. So to set the stage, I want to bring in some data and numbers to set the table here to have our discussion. And I'm going to give you three numbers. The first number, and these are about the electric power system, which are generally not understood. The first number is 45%. That is the capacity utilization of the power generation system in this country. And you say, well, why are we running out? There's a lot of capital inefficiency. It's not, it's demand inefficiency. Demand in late July and early August in this country, because of air conditioning, is 2 times what it is in the shoulder months of October and April. That's for the country. In some places, it's 2.2, 2.3 times. Now, what matters in reliability is the difference between that number and dispatchable power generation. That's the industry's term for always available. So it's nuclear, natural gas, and coal. And 15 years ago, that cushion was 17%, and it shrunk to 6%. And if trends don't change, those lines are going to cross in 3 years. The second number is 2. The chairman alluded to this. We have 2 side-by-side, completely different revenue models for power generation in this country separated by state. 15 states representing 42% of electric power demand in this country are competitive markets. It's a commodity market with delivery rules just like oil and gas, just like copper and aluminum. In those markets, prices are set on the margin by the high-cost producer, so when demand grows faster than supply, it shouldn't be a surprise that prices are going up. The other 35 states, representing 58% of power generation, are vertically integrated monopoly utilities operating on a cost-plus model, and the price is set very simply by the sum of the costs divided by the kilowatt hours. In the deregulated markets, we're seeing wholesale prices up in the last 3 years. In the vertically integrated markets, they're actually flat. The third number is 375%. That is the increase in the industry's bottom-up 5-year forward plans for capacity additions for natural gas. 3 years ago, wind and solar, 160, 170 gigawatts. That's the 5-year plan now. Coal, minus 50. 3 years ago, still minus 50 and maybe shrinking. The secretary didn't talk about that. Nuclear and everything else, basically flat. Natural gas has gone from 20 to 75 gigawatts. And with that, I want to start with you. You guys had your investor day a few weeks ago, and for folks in the room, just get it off their website. It is a masterclass in what's going on in natural gas and electricity, especially, don't forget the appendices. And there's like 4 appendices on this thing. I thought I was bad. Could you kind of take people through the main strategic elements that you explained to investors, and sort of probably the complexity involved in natural gas business, especially in supporting electricity, and how it's central to your business plans?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And I'll make it actually, it is a lot of slides. I boil it down to 2 key themes, and they haunt me actually, and it's why we are so passionate about our business. You know, the company's been in business for over 100 years. We've built some incredible infrastructure. The company built the war emergency pipelines during World War II. German submarines were sinking oil tankers in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. And we partnered with the U.S. government and built 2 pipelines from Texas to New York in under a year, almost 3,000 miles of pipeline built in under a year. And I said this at Analyst Day, the D-Day invasion doesn't happen, the liberation of Europe doesn't happen if we don't build infrastructure and deliver the energy to where it's needed when it's needed. And
speed to market, I remember stories where you could actually see the construction equipment as they were going to people's houses to get the right-of-way.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. That was built in the 1940s with that technology. But I boil it down to 2 kind of haunting facts, and you heard a little bit about this. You know, in the year 2000, we were the dominant manufacturer on the planet. We made 1/3 of global goods. Today, we're less than half that. You know, when you talk about, I've heard people say, well, we haven't grown electricity production for 25 years because we're more efficient. That's not true. The world has doubled electricity production over the last 25 years. We've just outsourced manufacturing and growth to other parts of the world. So we've got to understand that 30 years ago, you know, when Walmart became the dominant, I remember as a kid, you know, when Walmart displaced Kmart, it was because they came into my hometown with a Made in USA campaign. You could go into a Walmart and any good you wanted to buy could be made in the USA. You'd be hard-pressed to go into Walmart today and find goods that are made in the USA. And so if you look at the last 25 years, we haven't grown electricity production at all. We've given up our role as the leader in world global manufacturing. We, meanwhile, have watched China grow their electricity production by 10 times, and they are now the dominant electricity producer on the planet. Not only are they a dominant electricity producer, they are the dominant growing electricity producer. They know how to scale electricity. We haven't, in 25 years, scaled electricity. So that's the first fundamental. The second is, we talk about this a lot, pipeline capacity has been lagging the growth in natural gas demand. We're actually accelerating the growth of natural gas demand. It's been an incredible growth story. We've grown natural gas demand by about 50% over the last 10 years. We're forecast to grow by another 35%. But because of the law of large numbers, that's actually more growth over the next 10 years than not just the last decade, but the last 15 years of natural gas demand growth. So we're accelerating natural gas demand growth at a time where we're decelerating pipeline expansion and storage expansion. So
we have the same graphs in our investor deck that you had in yours. Did you hawk it from us?
No, I think you stole that from us. But that's why you're going to hear us talk about pipe and power. We've got to get back to building as a country. We've got to get back to manufacturing. We've got to make sure that we win the race for the next generation of technology. 10 years ago, we built 1,500 miles a year of high-voltage electric transmission lines. This year, we'll build less than 500. So we're building things at 1/3 of the pace we were just 10 years ago, and we're trying to, you know, believe that we can win this next race for opportunity and energy security. And so that's the primary theme of our business. Our job is to bring infrastructure to American companies, American consumers, so that we can prosper and we can win this next generation of opportunity.
So as a segue to Derrick and to get onto the issue of speed, it's great you started with a World War II story. You guys have actually made a pretty big business strategic decision to forward integrate into power generation, and you announced, Chad, 4 projects with names like Socrates and Socrates the Younger. I love that too.
Great name.
Could you talk about the decision behind that and why the customers have demand for you to do that versus perhaps the incumbents?
Yeah, and I'll also bring Derrick into this. I mean, that is one of the, you know, I was thinking about, there's a lot of challenges with air travel this week, but I was thinking about it every time I get on an airplane. I still say a small prayer that I hope that the big engine doesn't fall off the wing. You know, I don't know if anybody else does that, but it amazes me that, like, if you that this actually works, right? And we take it for granted. And these guys build these incredible pieces of equipment. They're insanely complex. The scale of what we do, we talked about on the coast of Louisiana, the export, like, we build things at a scale and a level of complexity in this country that is incredible, and we have the opportunity to power this next generation of technology. But you know what? Our American companies can't get the energy they need to do it, and so we said we need to keep bringing natural gas capacity and supplies to power plants, expand our grid. But we've been slowing down the growth of transmission in our country, and we haven't grown incremental electricity production in 25 years. So we also have to be able to bring energy solutions to the companies that can't get it when and where they need it. And so that's why we've been partnering with Caterpillar, Solar, and others to bring direct to data center projects while we also work to expand the grid. And I want to make it clear, you hear a lot of these discussions. This is not a grid versus behind the meter. This is not a big turbine versus small turbine.
Thanks, yeah.
This is all of us needing to pull together to bring tailored solutions to American companies so that they can get the energy when and where they need it, so that they can build the next generation of technology for the
and
country.
it just goes to the complexity of the problem that you guys are going forward to that. And so Derrick, people in this room are familiar with, see, he says solar too. See, we say solar in the office to not confuse people with solar panels. So,
it has nothing to do with solar
could
PV.
you kind of talk about, because you've had experience in both the turbine business and the reciprocating engine business at Caterpillar, and kind of talk about that and what's going on with you guys.
Yep, so for those that don't know, so Solar Turbines is a division within Caterpillar, 99-year-old company, right? We started 99 years ago with the name Solar, and we've continued to have it ever since. But we manufacture natural gas turbines, compressors, generators that go with it, generator packages, and kind of serve this entire ecosystem that we're talking about today. We're part of Caterpillar, so Caterpillar's a 100-year-old company. A lot of people know Caterpillar very well. You think about us as you drive down the road and you see our construction equipment, which is also a very prominent business for us. But our power and energy business is one of the largest, actually the largest segment within Caterpillar today, and one of the fastest growing segments that we have. And it's a lot of the reasons that we talked about today is why that's just the case. We've announced that we're going to continue to invest in power and energy across the portfolio. So when you think about us in the ecosystem, I mean, we're there to provide power at the drill rig. We're there to help with well stimulation. We're there to help with gas gathering. We're there to help with our turbines moving gas down a pipeline. We also have construction equipment there to help build the pipeline. And then we're at the end of it as well as you create electricity from it or export the natural resources. So it's a unique position to be across the entire spectrum. With that comes a lot of opportunity, right? A lot of opportunity, but also comes a lot of responsibility. And I think everyone in this room shares that sense of responsibility to go after that opportunity that sits in front of us. We've made announcements that we're going to invest. We work closely with our customers to outline what do they need, what are the needs for the next several years, and then invest the capital to ensure that we're there to deliver that. Reciprocating engines, turbines are two areas where we're investing pretty significantly to meet this good opportunity and make sure that we're there as reliable partners.
Yeah, and just a note, if you do fly into San Diego, look out, and you're sitting on the right side of the airplane, you can look out the window, and as it's actually, you kind of dive bomb into San Diego, but as you do, the Solar facility, I mean, they build these machines, right here in America. I mean, the primary factory for a lot of our engines is in Indiana, for on the reciprocating engine side, and the turbines are built in California and San Diego, so it's a great American company.
I remember I went to Russia in 1995, 2 years after the revolution. We had to fly Aeroflot to go to the Western oil fields. So when I finally got on that Delta flight back to JFK, and I looked out the window and I said, "God bless Boeing and Pratt & Whitney. Get me out of here." Derrick, you guys have announced some capital expansion plans to grow your capacity to make generation. We've just started doing research in our firm to look at this globally. Folks may not realize this, but electricity demand globally grew 4.3% last year, and historically has been growing at about twice primary energy growth, which is kind of 1.5%, half GDP. But electricity is at or above GDP, so U.S. companies have to compete for all the demand for gas turbines overseas. So we've kind of done some supply demand on that, and it looks like about 100 gigawatts are manufactured a year globally. Only about 55 of that is baseload combined cycle natural gas by Mitsubishi, Siemens, and GE. The rest is reciprocating engines and the single stage turbines. You guys have talked about expanding your capacity by what were the numbers?
Yeah, on the reciprocating side, about 2 times, and then on the turbine side, about 2.5.
Yeah, and the baseload guys, I think their plans are only about 1.5 times. And so increasingly, when they want power, they're having to go to the non-baseload because it's it's maxed out. We only have a few minutes. One of the things, Chad, I want to come back to you is just on electric gas coordination. I talked about dispatchable power, but a critical part of that is gas peaking units, which only provide about 6% of the kilowatt hours, but the system would crash in late July and early August if we didn't have that. I've actually worked with Alan and the Environmental Defense Fund. We actually made some filings with FERC on electric gas coordination. You guys have made some acquisitions in gas storage. Can you just just talk a little bit about the complexity and the skills that you guys have in supporting the power grid with your gas assets?
Yeah, and I think this is something for all of us in this room. I've been thinking a lot about this, and we've been spending time as a team at Williams. We've kind of built the system in a way that isn't necessarily right-sized and right-designed for the needs of today. We've added a lot of intermittency. We've obviously converted a lot of coal to natural gas in the United States. We've changed the composition of our grid, and now we're trying to expand rapidly to add very different loads and very large loads in the form of data centers. And so if you were to take a step back and design the grid today based on what we know the load is and how it behaves, you would design it differently. We would actually design the machines differently, and we're working with Solar and Caterpillar to think about, we've kind of solved a new problem with existing technology. You mentioned earlier, on most days, 60% of the thermal generation assets in our country are not running. They're sitting latent. Like, we have power generation facilities that we can optimize. We also, though, need to take the technologies that we've relied upon and modify them for the future. Think about a data center. A data center today is designed with a separate power system and a separate cooling system. Fundamentally, those are two mechanical systems. There is a lot of inefficiency by having those systems separate. You talk about simple cycle. There's no reason why you can't put a steam turbine on the back of a solar turbine. And so
Derrick and I were talking about before, the efficiencies that can be built into these.
We've got to think
cooling
differently, right? Yeah. So when I think about us and our role, it's not just continuing to deliver projects, but how do we repurpose, modify, and redesign existing systems and then augment them with the systems of the future. And I've said this, you're not going to tear up the roads and build new roads for electric vehicles. We're not going to be able to replace the entire energy system of the United States. That's been a bit of at times I think you would turn on the TV and think that that's possible. People are advocating for that. It is not going to happen. We need to leverage the infrastructure that we have. But we're going to make sure that we figure out how to bring natural gas combined with power solutions. I said it at the beginning. I think the next 10 years is all about pipe and power in our space. We've got to bring pipeline and storage capacity. We've got to complement that with the recognition that the power needs of the country are different and are really important for this next generation of opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add something just because, Chad, that's a real good point. I think it'll be an evolution, right? So depending on the customer segment or the situation at hand, speed to power may be the right solution right now. But over time, short-term, long-term, depending on the situation, we need to be able to provide alternatives and evolve that structure to provide the most efficient solution to the customer. And those opportunities are out there. They're actually in other industries today, and we utilize them and deploy them today. Right now, power generation, as soon as you can get power online, is kind of the preferred choice. But over time, we'll continue to evolve the solution to be even more efficient and leveraging these additional technologies that either exist today in other applications or that we're under development today.
The division you're in now is pretty much all natural gas turbines, but the reciprocating engine business runs either diesel or natural gas. One of my portfolio companies, Wisconsin Electric, is actually installing 130 megawatts of reciprocating sort of peaking units in remote load pockets in Wisconsin, because it's so much cheaper than running new transmission that's only going to be used, say, 6 weeks of the year. It's all a relative cost issue. Yeah. You talk about the fuel flexibility.
Yeah, fuel flexibility is key. Even if you think about the evolution that we've had in drilling and even well stimulation, right? A lot of that used to be diesel as a primary fuel source. Over time, it's evolved to where it's not just diesel, but it's diesel gas, and we also have capabilities to do diesel gas blending depending on whether or not gas is there and readily available and whether or not you need it, just the reliability of diesel. There's other fuel options that we offer, but a lot of it comes down to what's available and what's practical for that situation at that time. I think a lot of the innovation that we've seen, a lot of the product introductions that we've had have been around gas and utilizing associated gas in the field. So how can you use gas that's readily available, low cost, an option, right? If you don't use it there, you're going to transport it somewhere else. How can you use it there? And providing those solutions that also provide consistent, reliable power to that application has been something that we've been very focused on. I'd say in the last decade or so, it's been part of our evolution of portfolio.
Yeah, and on this, Jim, I just want to note, because again, I think what's neat about a company like Caterpillar, and I think there's a misconception at times, like it takes a lot of different tools to optimize an energy system. And sometimes you hear, hey, a recip runs on diesel, or a recip is less efficient than a big turbine. Running a big turbine oftentimes requires inefficient ancillary systems. Having to run transmission infrastructure over long distances is challenging and has its own efficiency issues. Making sure we don't think about the either ors, but bringing, Derrick said speed to market, bringing a combination of technologies and solutions. That's actually how you optimize and build the most efficient energy system possible. I hear a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't be putting in recips, or you shouldn't be putting in simple cycle, or you should only do that. We need to figure out how to bring all the tools together. And it's one of the beauties of, not many, you hear a lot of people talk their own small piece of the puzzle, but it is a puzzle that you have to put together, and you need all of those pieces to make a system optimized.
Yeah, and I would say that we have people in our organizations that wake up every day with the mandate to solve these problems, right? To unlock these opportunities. Like people that wake up every day, good engineers, designed, tasked with solving these problems. It's exciting to work with partners, with customers that have that same mentality, and we can leverage our expertise and our people to do that. But they wake up every day, and that's what they think about, right? And it's exciting to be part of that. And the key is then how do you unlock that? How do you unlock that talent? How do you unlock that creativity? How do you bring that to customers? And how do you bring it in a way that creates value? That's where we stand in the middle and help do that. But it's exciting to be part of this journey.
So I'm getting the sign for the hook. It sounds like what you need is an experienced energy nerd to sort of help with all this coordination. And maybe the energy secretary, who is a self-described nerd, after he does public service, he could, because you just sent someone to Washington, maybe you should do a trade.
Yeah.
Look,
I actually see it. We have another commissioner here in the room, and I want to give a shout out to what we heard with the chairman and to former Chairman Rosner. I think we need leaders. And I appreciate, you saw several today on stage, leaders like Commissioner Rosner, being able to do hard things that aren't easy. We've been told oftentimes it sounds really easy. It's cheap, it's free, it's easy. Nothing, that we want to accomplish as a country is going to be cheap, easy, or free, and it takes leaders. And so I just want to say appreciate, leaders like Commissioner Rosner and everybody in this room. I think we've got an incredible, we talk a lot about the challenges of building things and how hard some things are, but man, we have such a great opportunity, and natural gas is going to be right in the middle of it. We talk about we've got to win here and now, here at home, then we've got to export these solutions to the rest of the world. We should be solving global poverty, global energy problems. We've got to win here and now, but we've then got to figure out how to be, the country that exports that to the rest of the world.